My name was Ibrahim. I was a Sheikh, respected, revered, and rooted deeply in the traditions of my faith. By 35, I had dedicated my life to the tenets of Islam, guiding my community with unwavering certainty. But beneath my austere exterior, turmoil simmered, a profound emptiness that whispered in the winds of doubt. I prayed fervently, yet felt no connection. Then, in the blaze of a scorching day in Mecca, everything changed forever. A moment of distraction, a prayer interrupted, and suddenly I was not just lost in thought, I was lost in a darkness unmeasured. A car crash spiraled me into a near-death experience that would shatter my understanding of the divine. In that desolate void, amidst the shadows, a light blazed brighter than the desert sun. It was then that I heard his voice, calling me by name, Jesus. He didn't rebuke me. Instead, he illuminated the truth hidden beneath the layers of doctrine I had embraced blindly. He revealed how the very faith I had devoted myself to could bind me, shackling my spirit with chains disguised as piety. In that sacred moment, I realized that I had been following rules, not a relationship. A revelation unfolded, and the reality of spiritual warfare surrounded me, an insidious struggle where fear and control reign supreme, battling against the love that Jesus embodies. Returning to my life, I was filled with an urgent need to share this awakening, to unveil the deception I had lived under. But the path was fraught with danger. I was now branded a heretic, facing rejection from my family and community. The weight of their scorn felt suffocating. Yet, the fire ignited within me was undeniable, compelling me to seek the truth at all costs. As I navigated this treacherous wilderness, I discovered others who shared in the silent struggles of their own faith. Together, we began to forge a new understanding, one steeped in love, freedom, and truth. I knew I was called to voice this revelation, to challenge the very structures that rob souls of their divine purpose. It was time to rise up and transform pain into purpose, to embrace a new identity free from the fears that had long held me captive. So join me as I explore the depths of this experience, revealing the drastic shift from darkness to light. Your own journey may echo mine, waiting just beyond the horizon. Before we dive deep, I invite you to comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Let's connect across this vast space of truth. And if the love of Jesus stirs your heart, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Join us, for the revelations that await are not just stories, they are spiritual awakenings, beckoning you toward freedom. In the heart of Mecca, I was known as a Sheikh, deeply respected within my community for my commitment to Islamic teachings. Day after day, I led prayers, guiding others in the rituals and traditions that define our faith. This revered role brought with it a sense of pride, yet beneath the surface, an unsettling emptiness began to grow. Each prayer I offered felt more like an obligation than a connection to God. The environment around me was steeped in obedience and tradition, where questioning any Islamic practices was met with harsh judgment. I watched as many in my community clung tightly to their beliefs, willing to conform out of fear rather than genuine faith. As the tension within me increased, I found myself wrestling with doubts I couldn't voice. I began experiencing dreams filled with images of light calling to me, beckoning me to seek answers that lay beyond the confines of my understanding. In waking hours, the sense of disconnection persisted. I could see the hypocrisy of those around me, the gap between their teachings and their lives growing wider. This internal turmoil left me emotionally drained, drowning in guilt for not living up to the expectations placed upon me, yet yearning for deeper meaning. One fateful evening, everything changed. I was involved in a severe accident that sent my life spiraling. The world around me faded away, and as my consciousness slipped, I was thrust into a realm of darkness. It was disorienting, and for a moment I feared I was lost forever. But then, the darkness was pierced by an incredible light, and in that light stood Jesus, his presence radiating love and warmth. Ahmad, he called, and the sound enveloped me, quieting my fears. It felt like a homecoming, and in that moment I understood that my life was about to change forever. As I stood before Jesus, revelations began to flood my mind, a torrent of truth that shattered the illusions I had held for so long. In his company, I witnessed the hidden agenda of the elite, how they twisted faith to control and manipulate. My eyes were opened to the spiritual war that raged all around us, a battle fought not just in distant lands, but within the hearts of individuals caught in the throes of deception. I realized how easily people were misled, clinging to dogma while the essence of faith slipped through their fingers like sand. Each truth unveiled felt like a key unlocking the chains that had constrained my spirit for years. As I returned to consciousness, the weight of what I had encountered pressed upon me. I had not simply experienced a revelation. I had been called to act. My heart burned with the urgency to share what I had learned with others, to extend the light of awakening to those ensnared by darkness. Yet, as I stepped back into my community, I felt the looming shadows of rejection. Would they accept my awakening or cast me out as a heretic? The fear of losing everything I had known clashed violently with the conviction that I must speak out. I realized that the cost of silence was too high. In the face of a spiritual war fought with deception and fear, the truth was the only weapon we could wield. My journey was just beginning, and I resolved to confront the challenges ahead, ready to embrace the future that awaited me. As a Sheikh in Mecca, I was viewed as a pillar of my community, a figure of authority and respect. Day after day I led prayers, delivering sermons that echoed traditional teachings wrapped in fervent devotion. Yet, beneath this exterior, a gnawing emptiness lurked like a shadow, tainting everything I did. The weight of those expectations bore down on me, constricting my spirit as I juggled the demands of faith and the anguish of unvoiced doubts. I had built a life around my commitment to Islam, yet the very core of what I believed began to fracture under the pressure of scrutiny and introspection. One evening, while deep in prayer, I experienced a sudden sense of detachment from my surroundings. It frightened me. I fell into a trance-like state, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. When I opened my eyes, I felt my spirit slipping away, and in that moment, the world around me dissolved into darkness. I felt as though I was being pulled into an abyss, where time held no meaning. The terror of the unknown gripped my heart, yet amidst that fear, a glimmer of hope began to emerge as a brilliant light pierced through the gloom. That light felt familiar, and as it grew, I found myself face to face with Jesus. In his presence, every fear, every drop of emptiness vanished. Ibrahim, he spoke, his voice gentle yet commanding, filling me with an understanding that transcended words. It was as if all my anguish was recognized, and for the first time, I felt truly seen. In that sacred space, revelations began to flow like a stream. uncovering the hidden agenda that had shaped my life and the lives of so many around me. I witnessed the spiritual war that raged in our society, how the elite manipulated religion to instill fear, sowing division among believers. The truth of it struck me like lightning. I was in the midst of a profound awakening, and the deception that had held me captive was now being unraveled before my very eyes. As Jesus unfolded these truths, I could see the threads of manipulation woven into the systems I had trusted blindly. I realized how we were often fed half-truths, the sacred turned into weapons, and the beauty of our faith cast aside in favor of control and oppression. Every moment spent in the festival of belief grew heavy with the knowledge of its ties to suffering and agony that transcended nations and cultures. The urgency to stand up and challenge the lies became palpable, igniting a fire in my heart that urged me to return to my community with this newfound understanding. When I returned to the physical world, consciousness flooded back in, but it was no longer the same. Everything around me seemed starkly clear, and yet a cold reality settled into my bones. The fear of rejection loomed ominously. The very community I had once served with devotion was now the source of my anxiety. Would they accept the revelations I had experienced? Would they welcome the truth I was compelled to share? Each passing moment felt like a war within myself. The desire to speak contrasted sharply with the fear of losing everything I had ever known. I had tasted the liberating truth, and now I could not bear the thought of retreating into silence. Determined to embrace this awakening, I sought solace in every corner of my new reality. I connected with others who had also faced spiritual crises, forming a fellowship built on shared experiences and truths. Together, we forged a path to challenge the hidden agendas that had kept us in emotional captivity. The urgency intensified as we prepared to confront the boundaries of our former lives, the spiritual war pressing down on us fiercely. Each of us carried our own burdens, yet we felt strengthened by our community. In that collective endeavor, the voice of Jesus echoed, fueling our resolve to battle the deception together and awaken the hearts still lurking in darkness. The journey was just beginning, and I felt the thrill of liberation awaiting us amidst the trials yet to come. As I engaged in fervent prayers within the sacred walls of the mosque, a growing sense of disconnection enveloped me. I dedicated my life as a sheikh in Mecca, respected for my teachings and guidance. Yet over the years, while I recited verses of the Quran, I felt an unsettling void, an echo of doubts that began to resonate deep within my soul. The rituals that once defined my faith now felt like chains, binding me to an existence that brought more confusion than clarity. I loved my community, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something beyond the confines of norms and expectations that had governed my life. In those moments of prayer, I found myself silently questioning the very foundations of my faith. Was the adherence to tradition allowing for a true connection to God, or was it merely a performance to appease the community? The intensity of my devotion clashed with the unease I felt inside. I longed for an authentic relationship with the divine. Yet the fear of straying from conventional beliefs held me hostage. Each prayer became a struggle, a battle against the thoughts that flickered in the corners of my mind, urging me to seek deeper meaning. One harrowing night, my world was shaken to its core during an unexpected tragedy. A significant event, the loss of a close friend, shattered my already fragile belief system. As I grieved, I felt my spirit slipping away, and during that dark moment between life and death, I was thrust into a supernatural experience unlike anything I had ever known. I drifted into a state of profound darkness, void of sound or sight, when suddenly, a brilliant light surrounded me. In an instant, I came face to face with Jesus, his presence radiating warmth that melted away my fear and confusion. Allah has allowed you to see Ahmed. He spoke softly yet powerfully, piercing through my doubts. You are part of a spiritual war, caught between truth and deception. In that moment, revelations flooded my mind, showing me the hidden agendas that plagued our lives. I began to understand how the elite manipulated spiritual teachings, using them as tools to sustain control and keep us divided. The lessons I had thought were sacred were often twisted, leading us away from the divine love and unity intended within our faith. This revelation was both shocking and liberating. It held the promise that awakening was possible if I could break free from those chains. As I returned to consciousness, back to a world that felt both familiar and foreign, I knew my life had been irrevocably changed. The pain I felt from the loss of my friend paled in comparison to the fire ignited within me to spread the truth I had witnessed. The fears of ridicule and rejection surfaced, but the strength of my encounter with Jesus propelled me forward. I could no longer live in the shadows of doubt or fear. I had to unite with others seeking truth, to share my story, and to awaken those still asleep in a society manipulated by hidden agendas. Each breath I took resonated with the urgency to confront the spiritual war waging around us, to stand for the truth until every soul could recognize the light within them. The haunting visits to the cemetery began to plague my dreams, each night pulling me deeper into a realm of reflection that felt like a spiritual trial. As a respected Sheikh in Mecca, I had spent my life preaching faith and obedience, yet I found myself increasingly tormented by thoughts of my own existence. Every time I stepped through the gates of that cemetery, I felt an overwhelming sense of finality, a confrontation with the impermanence of life. The graves stood like sentinels, reminders of those who came before me, their stories untold but lingering in the silence. I couldn't help but wonder, what did they believe at the end? Did they find peace? Or were they left unsettled like me? The dreams soon carried the same unsettling tone. Each night, I was thrust into dark landscapes where I wandered alone, searching for something I couldn't quite grasp. Faces of the departed flickered through my mind, their expressions riddled with questions and uncertainty. In one particularly vivid dream, I encountered Jesus, not as a distant figure of my teachings, but as a friend, one who knew my struggles intimately. "Ibrahim," he said, his voice echoing through the shadows, "you're called to awaken from the slumber of comfort." I awoke gasping, the weight of his words clinging to me like a cloak. This divine call shook me to my core, prompting a torrent of thoughts and doubts about the faith I had long upheld. As the days passed, the conflict within me grew unbearable. I felt the tightening grip of a spiritual war, one that pitted my ingrained beliefs against the truths I was beginning to uncover. The elite, I learned, thrived on deception, manipulating faith to maintain their grasp on power. I found myself questioning the very teachings I had devoted my life to. Was I complicit in perpetuating the hidden agenda that sought to control my community? The more I delved into these thoughts, the more I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. It was a disorienting experience that left me feeling trapped between two worlds, the one I had always known and the one that beckoned me toward understanding. Despite my turmoil, a sense of urgency began to build within me. I realized that my experiences transcended my personal struggles. They were a collective call to action. In conversations with other seekers, I shared the visions that had troubled my sleep, the loving presence of Jesus who urged me to embrace the truth. Slowly, I began to understand that the spiritual war wasn't just about my awakening, but about illuminating the path for others as well. There's a profound power in sharing our stories. Each testimony a spark that could ignite a greater awakening among those still trapped in ignorance. Yet, amid this growing clarity, the fear of losing my community weighed heavily. The thought of being labeled a heretic haunted me. My family's faces filled with disappointment surfaced in my mind. It felt like stepping into a battleground, but I knew I had to choose to fight for the truth, regardless of the consequences. As I sought solace in prayer, asking Jesus for guidance, I felt his reassurance wrap around me, reminding me that courage was essential in this fight against deception. I was not just fighting for my freedom, but for the souls of others who had yet to embark on their own journey of awakening. With that realization, I understood that my mission was just beginning, and the path ahead was fraught with both fear and hope, ready to be navigated. It was a hot afternoon in Mecca, and I was driving home after an exhausting day of leading prayers and counseling my community. I felt a sense of emptiness lingering in my heart, a feeling that something was fundamentally missing from my life as a sheikh. Although I presented myself as a figure of faith and devotion, I struggled with a growing sense of dissatisfaction that I could no longer ignore. As I made my way through the busy streets, I closed my eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath and offering a silent prayer to God for guidance. But before I knew it, everything changed in a split second. The screech of tires filled my ears, and in that instant, I lost control of the vehicle. The crash was sudden and unforgiving, a force that jerked me from the physical world and threw me into a space of darkness. I felt my spirit detached from my body, suspended in a void where time seemed irrelevant. Strange visions began to swirl around me, vivid and disorienting. It was not long before I saw a bright light emerging from the shadows, and it drew me closer, beckoning me with a warmth that felt like home. In that moment of transcendence, I encountered a radiant figure, Jesus, standing before me, enveloped in a divine glow. His presence radiated love and reassurance, grounding me in the midst of chaos. Akash, he spoke my name with a tenderness that pierced through my soul. I felt tears welling up as the weight of my worries began to dissipate in his light. In that sacred moment, revelations unfolded before me, truths hidden behind the layers of my reality, intricately woven into the very fabric of our existence. Jesus revealed to me the spiritual war that raged not just within myself but throughout the world. I was shown how the elite manipulates faith, how a hidden agenda is crafted to exploit the devotion of millions, twisting spiritual beliefs into tools of deception. This manipulation had generated divisions, sparking fears that kept people from recognizing their own inner light. The insights poured into my consciousness like a stream breaking through a dam. I saw communities torn apart by prejudice, families divided by blind loyalty to traditions that obscured true spiritual connection. I felt the weight of the deception that had entrapped my community for so long, feeding on the fears and insecurities we held dear. "You must awaken," Jesus urged me, his voice echoing with urgency. "Your journey does not end here. It is only the beginning." These revelations fueled a fire deep within me, a desire to challenge the narratives that had constrained our understanding of faith for generations. They were not mere teachings meant to be recited, but living truths meant to liberate. As I lingered in this divine presence, I realized the magnitude of my calling. I felt the entire scope of my life unfold like a tapestry, each thread revealing how my experiences were intricately connected to the path I was meant to forge. Returning to the world was no longer a decision but a necessity. I understood that I had to convey this awakening to those still shrouded in darkness. The fears of rejection, of being labeled a heretic, flickered briefly in my mind, but they paled in comparison to the burning need to share the truth I had witnessed. The spiritual war within was escalating, and my role had transformed from a passive participant into an active warrior for truth. Coming back to consciousness, the realities of my crash hit me like a wave, though the warmth of that encounter lingered in my heart. I was alive, but my life had changed irrevocably. The pain of my injuries was nothing compared to the burden of knowledge I now carried. I emerged from that near-death experience not just with scars on my body, but with a mission that transcended my past. I was now faced with the daunting task of finding my place in a community that might not understand the perspective I had gained. Yet within the depths of my spirit, the light of Jesus burned brightly, guiding me toward a future filled with the urgency to speak out and awaken those who still wandered in the shadows. The journey ahead would require courage, but I felt prepared to confront whatever came my way in the battle for the truth. Upon returning to the waking world, I felt like a ghost haunting the very life I had lived so fervently. The warmth of Jesus' light still lingered within me, yet the bitterness of painful reality quickly eclipsed that glow. My heart raced as I faced the immediate backlash from my family and community. The moment I began sharing my truths, declaring my awakening, their reactions were swift and brutal. I was branded a heretic, a traitor to my faith, and the isolation swallowed me whole. Friends I once held dear turned their backs, eyes filled with disdain and fear. It was as if I had become a pariah in a world I once navigated with ease. The guilt wrapped around me like a heavy shroud, stifling my spirit. I thought about my family, their confusion, their anger. In my quest for truth, I had not only risked my relationships but shattered the very foundation of who I was. In those dark moments, the pain of solitude pierced through my soul. I mourned the connection I had lost, grappling with the weight of the sacrifices I still felt inclined to make. The spiritual war that unfolded within me was daunting. Could I fight for the truth I had tapped into while yearning for the acceptance of those I had once loved? I stumbled through the days, grappling with my newfound reality. Shadows of doubt crept into my thoughts, whispering fears of betrayal and failure. How could I lead others toward awakening when I felt so adrift myself? My dreams became vivid and haunting, a mixture of the past I had left behind and the journey I was forging ahead. In one dream, the face of Jesus appeared once more, bathed in the same transcendent light I had felt before. "Your path is not meant to be walked alone," he assured me, the warmth of his words a stark contrast to the coldness I experienced during the waking hours. As the days turned into weeks, I slowly found the courage to reconnect with those who seemed open to discussion. I began to forge new relationships with like-minded souls who had also faced the harsh realities of their own spiritual battles. Each conversation became a life raft, allowing us to share experiences of deception and manipulation that had long since clouded our understanding. We discussed the elite's hidden agenda to foster division, how the entire fabric of society held strings pulled by shadowy forces that sought to perpetuate control through fear. The urgency of our discussions filled the air. We felt the weight of history on our shoulders, but also the flicker of hope igniting our spirits. But even amidst this community of awakening, The fear of losing my old life still haunted me. The more I delved into the truth, the more isolated I felt from those who refused to discuss the growing tensions rooted in our society. I longed to help those left behind, longing to extend my hand to my family, yet I hesitated, worried that they wouldn't understand my transformation. Each day was a testament to the power of faith and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. My heart tugged in two directions, caught between the familiarity of my past and the unsettling pull of my awakening. The journey ahead remained uncertain, but within that uncertainty lay a profound opportunity to bring light into the darkness. If only I could gather the strength to navigate the storm brewing both inside and outside of me. In the quiet of my room, hidden from the eyes of a community that once revered me, I began a journey I never could have imagined. As an imam in Mecca, my life was woven with the threads of tradition and faith, yet after my profound encounter with Jesus, everything had shifted. Secrets clouded my mind, compelling me to explore the depths of a faith I had barely scratched the surface of. I sought solace and understanding within the Bible, retreating into its pages as if they could offer me answers to the questions that haunted my waking hours. The act of reading was more than mere curiosity. It became a lifeline, a connection to the truth that stirred within me. With each verse I read, my understanding began to unfurl, revealing insights that resonated with the revelations I had experienced. It was during this time that I found an underground support group, a refuge for others who, like me, had faced the turmoil of questioning their beliefs. As I listened to their stories, a powerful wave of reassurance washed over me. I was not alone in this journey. Others had traveled the same road, battling the fear of rejection while grappling with the implications of their newfound understanding. In the depths of their struggles, I found echoes of my own turmoil, and together we began to forge a bond built on shared experiences and truths that transcended traditional barriers. The contrast between my secret explorations and the fear of losing my identity weighed heavily on me. I longed for acceptance from my community, yet the knowledge I was gaining felt like an awakening that demanded I step beyond the shadows. The deeper I delved into the teachings of Jesus, the more I felt the peace that came from sincere prayer. For the first time, I prayed not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire for connection with the divine. These moments of prayer became a sanctuary, allowing me to express what had long been trapped inside: my fears, my hopes, and my yearning for truth. As this awakening unfolded, the spiritual war within me continued to intensify. I felt the tightening grip of societal expectations challenging my resolve, asking me to conform to a narrative I could no longer accept. The hidden agendas of the elite became clear, and I recognized how they perpetuated deception to maintain control over entire communities. My heart ached at the realization of how many had blindly followed these veiled manipulations, weighed down by ignorance and fear. I became determined to shine a light on these truths, to help others awaken to the realities that had long been obscured. Yet, doubt lingered. What if my family could never accept this new path? How could I reconcile my love for them with the fear of being labeled an outcast? Every prayer I offered in private called for strength, urging me to embrace my identity as I took this leap into the unknown. The road ahead was lined with uncertainties, but the urgency to share my journey and the enlightenment I had found grew more profound with each passing day. The fear of solitude still haunted me, yet there was a flicker of hope. The knowledge that truth and awakening could illuminate even the darkest corners of our existence. It was time to step out, to confront the spiritual war, and share what had been revealed to me. The moment I emerged from the darkness of my near-death experience, I understood my life was no longer my own. As a sheikh in Mecca, I had spent years preaching faith and loyalty to my community, but now I was filled with an overwhelming sense of purpose, accompanied by a deep reverence for the insights that had been granted to me. The experience was transcendent, a confrontation with Jesus that unraveled the very fabric of my beliefs. I felt the weight of revelation press upon me like an anchor, urging me to rise and take action. I knew my experience was not just for my awakening. It was a clarion call to speak out against the spiritual war that has long ensnared my people. Together with the rush of newfound awareness came the resolve to evangelize. I couldn't remain silent about the truths I had encountered. As I navigated my feelings of guilt and fear, the call to raise awareness about the importance of spiritual liberation echoed in my heart. I saw clearly how the hidden agenda of the elite had woven deception into our traditions and beliefs, distorting the essence of our faith and causing division among us. The realization left me invigorated yet terrified. The repercussions of challenging entrenched beliefs in my community could lead to severe consequences. Yet, every moment of fear only fueled my determination. I began reaching out to those around me, sharing my story and the truths that had been revealed by Jesus. With every conversation, I felt the urgency of my mission increase. I engaged with individuals who expressed discontent but feared to voice their doubts, those who recognized the misleading narratives but felt powerless to act. It was a risky invitation to question the familiarity of our dogmas, yet I felt an undeniable conviction that our community could awaken to a greater understanding if we stood together. Each gathering became a seed planted in the fertile ground of hearts willing to grow toward truth. But despite the fervor of our discussions, I was ever aware of the dangers looming over my actions. Many could see me as a traitor, and whispers of dissent circulated, threatening not just my safety, but the safety of my family. It was a constant source of anxiety, yet every time I prayed, I felt Jesus' presence reassuring me, as if he was guiding me along this winding path, urging me to remain steadfast in the face of adversity. I understood I wasn't just fighting for my voice. I was fighting for the souls of those still shackled in ignorance, yearning to break free from the binds of manipulation. As I embarked on this journey of evangelism, I held on to the vision of a liberated community firmly in my heart. I dreamt of a day when my family and friends would embrace the awakening we were striving for, where love would eclipse fear and understanding would replace hatred. The spiritual war may rage on, but with every step I felt more emboldened to confront it. It was a daunting task, but the truths I had discovered would serve as my armor and my light, guiding me as I navigated the turbulent waters of doubt and resistance. In that commitment lay the hope I sought, not just for myself, but for all who dared to challenge the deception that had long afflicted our lives. The decision to leave my old life behind felt monumental, akin to shedding skin that had grown too tight. I stood at the threshold of my existence as a sheikh in Mecca, the memories of my past swirling around me like dust in the wind. In the dim light of early dawn, I chose to adopt a new identity, one that would reflect my awakening and commitment to spreading the message of Jesus. As I trekked through the vast expanse of the desert, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Each step was a step away from the expectations that had bound me, yet it also pushed me towards a future shrouded in uncertainty. The desert, with its unforgiving heat and haunting silence, became a place of reflection. I thought of the life I was leaving behind, of the community that had once offered me solace but now felt suffocating. The spiritual war within me intensified, a constant reminder of the battle between the beliefs I once held and the truths I had uncovered. Each grain of sand beneath my feet symbolized not just the passage of time, but the weight of the hidden agenda that the elite had woven into our faith, manipulating it to control and suppress. Thoughts of my former life flashed before my eyes. I grieved the relationships that hung in the balance, fearing loss while pursuing a path that felt true. In the solitude of the desert, I found the courage to pray earnestly for the first time, pouring out my heart to Jesus. It was an act of vulnerability, a commitment not just to my new beliefs but to the love that transcended conventions. I felt His presence enveloping me, providing comfort amidst the strife. The revelations that surfaced in those moments felt like whispers of divine wisdom, igniting a fire within my soul. I understood more deeply how deception had thrived in my old beliefs. Traditions that once felt sacred now appeared shrouded in constraints, stemming from a desire for control rather than genuine connection with the divine. As the days turned into nights, the landscape of the desert transformed around me, mirroring my internal journey. I encountered obstacles, both physical and emotional, that tested my resolve. Still, each challenge served to clarify my mission. The pain of departure from my past life lingered, yet it became clear that this was necessary. I felt an awakening, a stirring in my spirit, urging me onward to fulfill the calling I had embraced. I knew I was meant to spread love and awareness, to share the truth with others who, like me, might feel entrapped by the very traditions meant to guide them. I encountered echoes of the spiritual war. One had realized in my visions, and with each new dawn I felt a renewed commitment to my purpose. I was determined to challenge the deceptions that had infiltrated our faith, to shine a light on the manipulation by those in power. The struggle ahead was daunting, but I held steadfast to the knowledge that my journey had a greater purpose. In the desolate beauty of the desert, surrounded by ancient secrets, I felt ready to confront whatever awaited me, carrying the love and revelations of Jesus as my guiding light. I was prepared to face the trials that lay ahead, trusting that every step I took would bring me closer to the truth. Years after my awakening, I found myself thriving in a new community that had become my sanctuary. The journey of leaving behind my former life as a sheikh in Mecca taught me more than I could have ever anticipated. Each gathering, filled with the stories of others who had sought spiritual freedom, felt like a reaffirmation of both my purpose and the revelations I had received. Together, we created an environment that encouraged exploration beyond the confines of traditional beliefs. I shared my testimony, recounting the profound encounter I had with Jesus and the truths that had reshaped my understanding of faith. It became clear that we were all participants in a larger spiritual war, battling against the hidden agendas of the elite, who thrived on division and deception. As the community grew, so did the impact of our collective awakening. Individuals began to transform, doubtful souls igniting with the flame of truth, discovering their own voices in the process. With every shared story, I felt the bonds between us strengthen, pushing aside the fears that had once held us back. The realization that love could triumph over religious conflict spread like wildfire, bridging gaps that society had created. We became advocates for each other, encouraging exploration of the deeper meanings of life beyond the dogmas that had once defined us. My heart swelled as I witnessed newfound joy blossom in others, shedding their doubts and embracing freedom. Yet while I found peace in this community, a lingering hope for reconciliation with my family remained. I often thought of them, knowing I had chosen a path that diverged sharply from the values we once held together. Would they understand my journey? I felt their shadows in my heart, longing for acceptance, but terrified of the consequences of my transformation. I sent prayers into the universe, hoping that love would ultimately prevail over the divisions we had created. Each night before sleep, I reflected on the conversations we could have, envisioning a time when forgiveness would overcome disappointment. In my quest to share the truth, I also faced resistance outside our circle. The spiritual war was not something I could escape, and those who clung to traditional beliefs often viewed me with suspicion or animosity. I witnessed firsthand how powerful the manipulation of fear and misinformation had become. It was astounding how quickly people turned on each other when the elite stirred the pot of division. I felt compelled to push back against that tide, armed with the revelations I had been gifted. These experiences served as constant reminders of why I needed to keep sharing my journey and advocating for love and understanding, even when the world around me seemed intent on creating chaos. Through it all, I clung to the essence of what I had learned. Truth and awakening were not merely personal quests. They were collective movements poised to reshape lives. The love of Jesus, a force that crossed the boundaries of religion, became the bedrock of our mission. We were determined to shine a light in the darkness and dismantle the barriers built on fear and deception. As each day unfolded, I embraced the role of a seeker, a truth teller in a world that desperately needed to hear the message of unity. In every heart I encountered, I saw the flicker of potential, waiting to be ignited, ready to join the fight for spiritual freedom. It was a journey filled with uncertainty, but I was resolved to face whatever lay ahead, trusting that the light of truth would guide us all. As I stand before you today, my journey feels far from over. I have traversed the shadows and embraced the light, yet this path remains riddled with uncertainty and spiritual warfare. I know now, with every fiber of my being, that the revelations I experienced are not just mine alone. They echo all around us, whispering truths we often ignore in our daily lives. The world is undergoing a profound awakening, and each of you is woven into the very fabric of this divine tapestry. Jesus' call to me was not simply a personal awakening. It was a summons for all who yearn for liberation. Are you aware of the invisible strings that bind you? Those fears, doubts, and societal expectations that pull you away from your true self? I want to invite you to reflect. What depths of understanding remain undiscovered within you? Have you felt the gentle nudging of something more profound, urging you to question the confines of your beliefs? I urge you to share your thoughts in the comments. Your experiences matter, and every voice counts in this chorus of spiritual awakening. As we dive deeper into this journey, I urge you, do not leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond and activate those notifications. This is not just about stories. It's about shared revelations that can awaken countless souls across the globe. What lies ahead could provide you with invaluable insights that might reverberate within your spirit, leading you toward profound transformations. And if you're ready to explore the next chapter of this enlightening journey, click on the video that's about to appear on your screen. You won't want to miss the next testimony, a powerful story of one who defied the confines dictated by their upbringing in the quest for truth and freedom. Thank you for allowing me to share this part of my journey with you. I am Hamza, and I invite you to walk this path of awakening alongside me. Remember, the truth is a flame meant to illuminate our darkest hours, leading us into the light together. Let's dare to seek, to question, and to grow. Until next time, stay curious and keep your hearts open.